What's going on, Poker fam? I hope you're doing well. I am parked outside of Poker House Dallas, about to go play my first ever live stream here. It's a 136 PLO. It's Kim's game. It's going to be streamed on their YouTube channel. We're going to max buy, try to money whip this game. This is one of our preferred games. I should be doing very well in this. I'd be very disappointed if I don't come out of here with a win. So please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, comment, like the videos, follow me on social media. And with that, let's go to the felt. All right, guys, so we're playing 136 with a $12 straddle, max buy to 2K, and then match the stack after that. Very first hand isn't really notable for me. I opened in this hand to 150, cut 4 callers. 3 players ended up getting all in on this hand, set over set versus Broadway. Broadway held. Immediately after this, everybody starts rebuying to match stacks, including myself. So like 3 people all add on for $2,000 to $4,000, and I can tell this is going to be a great session. We don't have to wait long, ladies and gentlemen, for me to play a big hand. The 4th hand of the night, I'm under the gun on the 3-6-12 straddle. Look down at Badoogie aces, ace, ace, king, 9, rainbow. Not a whole lot happening here, but given the action I've seen so far, we're ready to gamble. I open for 50, and Kim, to my immediate left, is going to make it 150 to go. Becca looks down at her hand. She flats, Jose flats, BKH flats, and then Yao in seat 7, he min raises it to 300. Now, Daryl in seat 8 flats that 300 with about 2K behind. And it comes back around to me. And so now I get to 5-bet my aces, my naked aces, to 1,500. So casually throw 3 $500 chips out there, making it 1,500. And Kim, Becca, and BKH are going to fold out at this point. Now, Yao, who did the 4-bet here, he's going to flat this 5-bet with the ace, deuce, 9, 10. Daryl caught in between us here with a playable hand. There's like 8, 8, 10 jack, something like that. He ends up flat calling that 1,500 as well. So now I couldn't ask for a better spot. And as I look at the stream and the data afterwards, I mean, this is just insane to be, going to a flop 3-way with 75% equity with your 2 opponents chopping the remaining equity between them. I mean, come on, you can't ask for better position, better equity, and PLO, that's just very rare to get that kind of favorable spot. The flop comes 8-4 deuce, and this is a bloated ass pot. There's not much that I'm folding to, when a pot gets this big. To my surprise, Yao's going to just lean right into this and go all in for $1,600. Now, the gentleman between us, he's only got $450, $500 left. He's going to call off as well. I'm not thinking twice about this. I can't get my money in there faster. And we see the hands that are tabled here. Yao asks us if we want to run 2 boards. That's really not my thing for PLO, but given the action I've seen so far, knowing we're going to be playing a lot of pots tonight, I'm like, what the hell, man? Let's do it. And so I agreed to run 2 boards. So now we have an 8.8K pot. The first turn comes the 3 of diamond. This is a horrible card for us, giving Yao both a straight and a flush draw. And that river's going to come the queen of spades, and naked aces are good for half the pot. That's nice, right? Now we need to just scoop. The turn for the second board comes the 4 of hearts, an excellent card for us, ladies and gentlemen. Counterfeits all those 2 pair outs that Yao may have in there, as well as Daryl with his top pair. And then that river comes on the second board, a deuce of hearts. Yao gets there, he hits that little 2 outer for trips and just owns me on that second board. Takes me from winning 5, 6K in this pot to winning about $1,500 chopping it with Yao. But nonetheless, this is the 4th hand of the night. I'm just elated to see this kind of action in the game, and this is setting us up for a really nice session. My next playable spot happens 4 hands later. It's the 8th hand of the night. I'm in the small blind. I look down at king, king, queen, 8 with 3 hearts. Now, the $12 straddle had just been limped 3 or 4 spots. And I'm in the small blind. I made it 75 to go. Kim called, Becca called, and then Galoo repotted it and made it 420 to go. So it's 345 to myself. I call, Kim calls, Becca calls. Now there's $1,700 in this pot, and the flop comes out 9 deuce 3 with 3 hearts. I flop the second nut flush. I also have 3 hearts in my hand. Now, with as much money that's in there and looking at the stack sizes behind me, I'm out of position. Becca has about $4,200 to $4,400 in her stack. Galoo looks like he has about 2K. So $1,700 pot. I'm not going to fold if they bet it. I'm just going to lean into this. So I pot it. I make it $1,700 to go. And Becca hesitates for a while, thinks about it, can tell she doesn't have a made hand. If she has the nut flush here, she just jams and has enough behind. It's like a $2,700 raise or something like that. I'm able to fold to a raise on this flop, especially from her. Unfortunately for me, she just flats. And then Galoo sits here for a moment, really thinks about this for a while before going all in for 358 bucks more on top of that 1700. Both I and Becca call. Now this pot is $7,500. I just need the turn card to come out clean. Feeling very comfortable that I'm good here with the second nut hand. And the turn comes a 9 of diamonds, board pair, first pitch. Out of position, I check. Becca goes all in for her remaining 2,200 bucks or so, squeezes me out of the pot. I fold. And Galoo had a small flush with a pocket pair. Rebecca had pocket deuces, bottom set on this board, and just first pitch the board pair. And having played with Becca before, she's totally capable of folding a set on that board, but we're early on in the session. She doesn't have enough behind for me to get her to fold off. Even if I brick the turn comes out clean, there's 7,500 bucks in there. I'm going to be giving her basically like almost the odds that she needs. She's going to be getting 4-1. The stack sizing worked out a little wonky on this. In hindsight, I could have played a little more cautiously, especially being out of position. Nevertheless, lost a little bit of money there. Lost about 2K, 2,100 bucks in this hand. Shrug it off and move on to the next one. I don't get to play another hand for another 40 minutes or so until we look down at this hand in the small blind. We've got King Jack 10-7 with 3 hearts. Nothing to write home about. In this particular hand, Galoo had raised in the dark. BKH called, comes back around to me in the small blind. I call, that flop comes out King 6 deuce rainbow, and I'm out of position. So I check, Galoo checks and flow, and BKH checks. The turn is another king. Now I have trip kings with the jack kicker. I bet 75, Galoo folds, and BKH calls. The river comes the king of spades. Now I have quads. Decent little pot here. I opt for the check here, going for some sort of check raise. In hindsight, this was a mistake, and as I looked at the video, I was really impressed to see that my opponent here, BKH, he actually checked. So there was some missed value there. I could have easily bet all the way up to maybe pot, 2/3 pot, 200 bucks, 250 bucks, and gotten a call on that river, but I fell victim to some fancy play syndrome, drug that $350 pot, and we're on to the next hand. All right, folks, this next hand is an absolute banger. Been card dead for well over an hour at this point, and BKH opens up under the gun for $60. I'm in middle position with 10-7-7-6 with 6-7 of clubs. This looks like a fire-breathing dragon at this point. I flat that 60. Kim behind me flats. Becca flats as well. Comes around to Galoo, who happily asks how much he can pot it for. He makes it 430 to go. BKH calls. I call. Kim calls. And Becca folds out. Now we are 4-way to a flop with $1,900 in the pot. That flop comes to Jack 4 deuce rainbow. And Galoo out of position is going to check. BKH checks behind him. I check and flow, and Kim checks as well. The turn comes an offsuit deuce. So now we have Jack 4 deuce deuce board. And Galoo's going to lead for 500 into this pot at this point. Player in between us, BKH, he folds pretty quickly. Now, let's think about this spot for a little bit, people. What is Galoo representing here on this turn? What did he 3-bet pre-flop and is now comfortable leading on the turn for value? Does he have jacks full here? I mean, that's really the only hand that makes sense that you're leading for value. Does he have some sort of deuce that was in a 3-bet hand of his and now he's betting out of position for value and he's betting that small? What it feels like to me in this spot is that he has an overpair. He thinks that deuce is a neutral card, and he's betting for value at this point, hopefully getting a fold or a raise from a deuce and being able to just shut it down and be done with the hand, right? So that's exactly what we're going to represent, ladies and gentlemen. He doesn't have shit here. He bets 500. We know this is an exploitable bet a good portion of the time, regardless of our hand, and more so with BKH folding in between us. Should I 3-bet here and Kim behind us actually have a deuce? I've shown enough strength. It's quite possible she can let go of a deuce. So I decide to raise it to $1,800. Kim folds out pretty quickly. Galoo does take a minute and him and haw, but he does eventually fold. Obviously, we're going to show them that we're able to detect weakness in these spots and exploit their play. We're going to move on to the next hand after we drag this pot with absolute air.
Stepped away from the table to give you all an update on this session. This is a wild PLO game. 2 or 3 players were all in the first hand. We all max spot for 2K, and then everybody matched stacks. So everybody has $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 in front of them. Won a big hand with naked aces, chopped it after we ran it twice. I was about a $7,000 pot. And in my other spot, I had kings in the 3-bet pot. Flopped a king high flush, potted it for $1,700, got 2 callers, and the board paired, and folded to the pot size bet there. So in for 8 with 5 in front of me right now, just added on 3. Let's fucking go.
So the very next hand, we are at it again. Yao's going to open for $50 here. We look down at our hand. We are in kind of early position. We have ace-6-4 deuce with 3 spades. Not a great hand, but this game is just popping off. We want to play some spots. We call that $50 open. Player or 2 behind us call as well, and then one of the blinds completes. So we're 5-way to a flop, $250 in this pot. This board comes out ace 6-3 with the 6-3 of hearts. Flop top 2, a little bottom end gut shot. The first player to act on the flop checks. Yao's going to lead out for 100. I call and Galoo calls. Comes back around to the player that checked the flop. Gentleman named Jose. He check raises to $700 on this board. Now, he didn't show any strength pre-flop. I get this, right? But I have yet to see him check raise one board here. And the player behind him to act, BKH, he flats. So now I'm sitting here with top 2 on a very wet board. There's all sorts of flush and straight draw combos. What I'm really worried about is Jose having a nut flush draw ace with a bunch of danglers, right? Where he has some really solid equity against me. There's really not a ton of turn cards that are great cards for me at all. Like, there's just so many bad cards. Like, maybe, I don't know, a 9, an offsuit 9 would be maybe a good card or something like that. But any face card is going to be a scare card. There's a million cards that are going to complete straights as well. So I think about this for a minute and I opt for the fold here. I'd love to hear what you think about this spot. My take on this is that, you know, there's going to be a follow through bet on the turn. And there's really only one nut card, you know, maybe an ace. If he has the other ace, there's maybe 1 or 2 nut cards that I have to really continue to pursue in this hand. So I fold, Galoo folds, obviously, naturally, right? That one nut card does come out on the turn. It does come in ace. I would have made aces full, absolute nuts on turn. Jose's going to bet here, BKH folds. We'll never see what that river would have been. Let me know if you would have done the same in the comments. A mere 2 hands later, we play our next spot. I'm in middle position when I look at the ace 7-6-4 with a few spades, and I open for $30, get 2 callers, and it comes back around to BKH, who's going to 3-bet it to 130 here. Myself, Becca, and Galoo all call, so there's $539 in that pot. What would be your dream flop if you had ace 6-7-4 with a few spades? It'd probably look a little something like this. It'd probably look like 4-8-9 with 2 spades, a pair, straight draw, flush draw. That'd be a pretty good flop for that hand, right? So that's what we flop. This is a huge hand for me. BKH is going to lead out on this flop after 3-betting pre-flop, and he bets 400. With this kind of equity, I've got to get more money in the pot. I can't get enough at this point, so I raise it to 1,200. Now, Mr. Galoo here is going to get caught up in the crossfire and just cold call my $1,200 raise on this flop. Comes back around to BKH, and he does complete that raise as well. This pot gets really big really quick. The turn comes a 9 of spades, man. There's 4.1K in the pot, and we turn our flush. Now, this board pair, I want to see how these players react to the situation. I'm not trying to pay them off with a little full house in this spot. Happy to see that it checked around. Now, the river comes a offsuit random jack. So at this point, with nobody betting the turn and BKH checking the river, I think it's very likely my hand's good here. Galoo would have to have a full house in position behind me, which is possible, right? Many people might opt for a check here. I think putting in a little value bet, getting a call from marginal flush is kind of my goal. So I bet 1,200 on the river. Both gentlemen had wraps and both made straights, but it was on a paired and flush board. And so they're going to fold out, and we're just going to drag this nice juicy pot. The very next hand, we have another very playable spot. I'm in the $12 straddle when I look down at ace, king, king 3 with ace, king of spades. Few people called that $12 straddle, and BKH potted it, making it 75 to go. A couple other players called, including myself. And when I say a couple, let me scratch that. Actually, 6 players called. So we are 7-handed to a flop, 525 in the pot. And that flop comes ace, 10, 3. The pre-flop aggressor is actually going to check, and we all check and flow. Goes around to Galoo on the button. He pots it for 525, and BKH is going to flat that. This is an easy fold all day long. I fold, and we're out of this hand. But I did want to put this on here on the vlog because I was actually running hot that day. Galoo did have ace 10 top 2, and had I stuck around, they both checked the turn, and the river comes my 2 outer for the 3, and I would have made a little dough there. Nonetheless, again, not results oriented, made the right fold, and we move on to the next hand. We're going to fold out for about the next orbit. We play our next hand at hand 53 here. I look down at king, queen, jack 3 with 3 diamonds in my hand. I'm in the $12 straddle. BKH in the small blind made it $60 to go. Yao calls, Rick calls, I call, and Galoo calls. The pot is $300, and the flop comes out king 9-4, all rainbow. With 3 checks in front of me at this point on this flop, I decide to bet here, and I bet $200. BKH is the only person that calls, and everybody else folds, so there's $700 in the pot at this point. The turn comes a 6 of hearts. He checks and I check behind, just really wanting that dry, black 10. Let's get a 10 out here and just scoop this pot. And someone was listening. That 10 of clubs peels off on the river. I have the nuts and music to my ears when BKH is going to lead out for $300 into this pot. At this point, I've got to figure out how to get max value. Do I min raise it? Just make it, 600 here. I decided to opt for a little bit more, making it 800, $500 raise, and he snap folds, and we drag this pot.
All right, guys, session update. We're got about 30 minutes left of the stream. I've got 10K in front of me, about even. Won a big pot, bluffed another, and ready to get winner now. Let's go.
This hand plays out about 10 minutes after that last hand that we just reviewed. Look down at ace 10 4 deuce with a couple of diamonds in my hand, the ace 4 of diamonds. In this hand, Galoo had raised it to $50 in the small blind. I called and 3 other players called as well. So we got $251 in the pot. And this flop comes out the king 6 deuce with the 6 deuce of diamonds. We obviously want to hit a diamond here, maybe steal action if we could. The pair here helps us as well. So we check around to Galoo, hoping he's going to bet that we can check raise this flop. And nonetheless, he does not oblige. He checks. But that's okay because the turn comes a deuce of hearts. Now we have trip deuces with an ace kicker on a clean looking board for us, right? Yal's going to take over the betting action at this point and lead out on the turn for 250. And I'm going to flat that, and that kills the rest of the action. Everybody else folds out. River comes a queen of spades. So it is a king 6 deuce deuce queen of spades board, and he leads out for 525. And before he can get the chips in, I'm snap calling with my little bluff catcher here, and he knows immediately he had an error, and he was like, oh shit, man. It was a fun pot to play. Drag a nice $1,800 pot, easy peasy, on to the next one. All right, folks, just 2 hands later, this is the last hand of the night that we played. We look down at the 6-3-3 deuce in early position. Rick, who was new to the table directly to my right, seat 8 there, he opens, had not seen him open at all this entire session. He opens for 60. I call, and 3 other players call as well. So we're 5-way to a flop, $300 in there. That flop comes out the 3-4 jack rainbow. We flop bottom set, a little second nut, gut shot straight draw there. And Rick is going to continue out, leads for 200. I've got a very good hand here. This is a raise all day. We need to see where we're at. I decided to raise it to 650 at this point, and the gentleman behind us, Galoo, is just going to cold call me here. And so he cold calls the 650, and Rick calls that as well. Now the pot's $2,300. The turn's going to come the 5 of hearts, bringing me the second nuts with my deuce to 6 straight. So if I was outflopped with a bigger straight here, I just outdrew them. And if for some reason they had some weird rappy hand and hit the 6-7 on this, I've got backup with the set, obviously. Do not think anyone had a wrap there. I think they would have probably raised that board if they did. The action now checks to me. Rick checks to me on this turn card. I bet $1,200. Both these boys fold out. We're just going to drag a $3,500 pot. That is the end of this session. We're going to wrap it up from here and cash out.
I got 12, 1, 150. 2, 4, 5,
Start the night.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 150. That was absolutely sick. I just finished the live stream, ended up being in for 10 grand and cashed out 12,350, made 2350 in 4 hours. So nice hourly. That game was bananas right off the bat, played much deeper than I expected, which was great. I love a good deep Omaha game. Had a lot of action right in the beginning, people adding on right away. So very enjoyable session. Was stuck like 5K going into the last hour. Won a couple of big hands, had a semi bluff that got through, and one air bluff that got me winner. So happy with the results, happy with the session. Really enjoy Poker House. It's a nice place. If you have not seen this, if you've not played here, come check it out. It's good stuff. Hope you enjoyed this session. Let me know what you thought of the hands, and we'll see you next time. Later.